Hi there. I am so glad that you have decided to connect and learn a little bit more about inflammation and the products and foods specifically, because we are looking at Food First Formula, which is a nutritional solutions baby, and something that I am very, very proud of to be offering all of my clients and potential clients, and just to give you that opportunity to look towards food first. So we'll just dive right in, going towards, understanding a little bit more about this presentation. So it might be about an hour, give or take, but you can always just stop it and then come back to it when you need to. And then we are going to be looking at a little bit better understanding with regards to inflammation and why it plays such a big role in our overall health, and looking at some goal setting strategies, perhaps, and understanding what we can actually do about inflammation and all of the underlying issues and downstream issues as a result of chronic inflammation. And we'll get into the different types of inflammation there in a little bit. Just to introduce myself a little bit, I'm Wendy, holistic nutritional consultant, and I actually do live blood analysis and dry blood analysis, and working towards that from that functional nutrition lens, really looking at that root cause of who and what you are and how to alleviate that so we don't end up having those downstream issues like those lifestyle diseases. As a palliative care nurse for 30 years, and looking after geriatric community, I was very heartbroken with the thought that people weren't understanding that lifestyle diseases, which are 95% preventable, could actually be, be preventable, and how to actually prevent them. So, looking at from that genetic standpoint, that's only about 10% of what and who we are. And, it's that lifestyle choices going forward that often can make the big difference about whether that 10% genetic um, predisposition is actually allowed to express itself going forward. And when I say express itself, I mean like develop into diseases. So that's kind of who and what I am. And yeah, so we'll just jump right in. So, the objectives basically of this slide is to understand the impact that inflammation has on the body. And we're going to name three diseases impacted by chronic inflammation, as well as looking at two different kinds of inflammation as well. We're going to name two anti inflammatory foods and the compounds that they contain that are actually the anti-inflammatory properties within them. And we're going to try to gain some confidence and some insight around how to prepare these foods, and that really help to fight inflammation, and then look at some supplements at the end. So just looking at this quote, which I just love, perhaps no single phenomenon contributes more to the medical burden of industrialized societies than non-resolving inflammation. And that was quoted by Carl Nathan. Again, looking at that root cause and how we can actually decrease the inflammation on an ongoing basis. It's not just a matter of decreasing inflammation today and you'll be good. It is an ongoing process and a lifestyle shift that we are kind of looking at. And that's why food first is kind of my thing, just because of the fact that we have to look at changing our eating habits and how we can do that quite easily. So, inflammation and chronic disease. Modern human diseases are often associated with chronic inflammation and involve disruption of homeostasis. So, homeostasis is basically just balance. CSI, that's a chronic systemic inflammation, which may play a role in diabetes. So, diabetes is a long lasting chronic health condition that affects how your body turns food into energy. Your body breaks down most of the food that we eat into sugar, and releases it into your bloodstream. When your blood sugar goes up, it signals your pancreas to release insulin. This is one of the many known lifestyle diseases that can be avoided and reversed with diet and lifestyle choices. So the next one we're looking at is cancer. So cancer is a term of diseases in which abnormal cells divide without controlling, without control, and can invade nearby tissues. And the environment within the live blood system, the environment in which cancer cells divide, is dependent upon that inflammatory process that's going on in the body. So if the body is inflamed, the terrain in which the cells divide is going to be acidic. So we are looking at really alkalining the body as much as possible, because cancer cells can spread through other parts of the body. And this is where that genetic makeup comes in. So if you are genetically predisposed to lung cancer, if you're been a smoker all your life, and that makes that area very weak. So this is where maybe the cancer will, um, head towards. If you are predisposed to colon cancer, this is where the cancer cells will go. But there's, again, something that can be quite controlled through keeping the body and the terrain very alkaline and keeping that inflammation down. Another one is neurological diseases. So some of the most common are epilepsy, Alzheimer's and other dementias, strokes and migraines and other headaches, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, and neurological infections, brain tumors, traumatic conditions of the nervous system, such as head injuries, disorders caused by malnutrition. These are all exacerbated by the inflammatory process. So many of the symptoms associated with these disorders can be controlled through simple yet effective anti-inflammatory diet, which we will talk about later on in the presentation. So metabolic syndrome, and this is kind of my go-to when I talk to a lot of people, although diabetes kind of falls into that metabolic syndrome umbrella. Cancer, neurological diseases, and the other ones kind of fall on the other side of things. But metabolic syndrome tends to be that cluster of conditions that occur together. So they increase your heart risk of heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes. And these conditions include high blood pressure, high blood sugars, excess body fat around the waist, and abnormal cholesterol and triglyceride levels. And these can, again, be exacerbated by simply having a chronic inflammation within the body. Autoimmune disorders happen when the body's natural defense system can't tell the difference between your own cells and foreign cells, and causing the body to mistakenly attack normal cells. So when there is something going on in the blood that is not proper, the body thinks it's under attack. So it will actually try to protect itself by first increasing inflammation, and then protecting it from there. So when we have that increased inflammation, we have increased acidity in the body, and then of course the myriad of issues that result as an acidic body going forward. So cardiovascular disease kind of falls under that metabolic disorders. So the metabolic disorders are those issues that can lead to the other things like cardiovascular disease, cancer, and diabetes. But people with cardiovascular disease usually have chronic inflammatory problems, and they actually have that increased risk because of them. And we're looking at CHD, so coronary heart disease, stroke, peripheral vascular disease, PVD, and cardiomyopathy that may not be fully captured by traditional cardiovascular disease risk factors, such as high fat levels, so high cholesterol, aging, hypertension, and smoking. Cardiovascular diseases actually lead to death globally, taking an estimated 17.9 million lives per year, which is crazy. We often forget this kind of stuff doesn't make the news on a daily basis, so we don't think about it. but it is one of those major, major killers in the world, not just North America. But I believe it's a lot higher in North America just simply because of our diet and lifestyle choices. Cardiovascular diseases are a group of disorders of the heart and blood vessels and include the coronary heart disease, cerebral vascular disease, rheumatic heart disease, and many other conditions as well too. So it's looking at a vast, vast, big portion of disease makeup and as well as the population. So what is inflammation? Does anyone know why we get fevers? So, inflammation is closely linked to homeostasis, and homeostasis is that body's mechanism of keeping physiological processes working under optimal conditions. It's basically just balancing the body. And inflammation is the body's protective response to challenges to that homeostasis. So, when things go out of balance, the body is trying to just protect itself through that inflammatory process. So, examples of challenges to the balance would be infection, tissue stress, injury. These are things that cause inflammation. And inflammation protects and heals the body by restoring physiological functions, which, when homeostatic mechanisms are insufficient. So, when the body can't protect itself and um, go back normally, like it should, inflammation comes in to help. So, it's basically the body's protective mechanisms. Inflammation takes precedence over homeostasis as inflammatory signals organize and a protective response to infection and injury. So, for example, a homeostatic mechanism keeps the body temperature at a healthy set point for proper body functioning. When necessary, such as in the case of infection, inflammation actually overrides the system and to raise body temperature. So, this is what we're looking at with a fever, creating a new set point. The rise in temperature, which we identify as a fever, fights off infection. So, this is one of the reasons why we get fevers, and one of the reasons potentially why it's not always good to try to lower that fever. This is part of that mechanism to be able to protect the body. Once the problem is resolved, the body temperature returns to normal set point. And this is an example of normal, healthy inflammation and body reactions. So, as long as your temperature or even a child's temperature doesn't get above a certain degree, you can keep that low grade or that medium grade type fever going because it will do so much better for the body as it tries to kill off whatever is making or having the cause of disruption in the body, that cause of homeostasis in the body. So inflammation is actually necessary. And it restores the balance, like I said, with homeostasis. The healthy body is naturally in homeostasis at all time. When an injury occurs, the body responds to inflammation, which eventually leads to recovery. Upon recovery, the body returns to homeostasis. Injury healing restores successful inflammation. So you see that within this picture here. We have an injury and it slowly heals, and we go from homeostasis, injury, inflammatory response, recovery, and then back to homeostasis. Isn't that the beauty of the human body? I just love it. So again, there's two types of inflammation. There's chronic and acute. Acute inflammation is the immune system's initial response to harmful stimuli. So that's what this is, acute. But chronic inflammation is prolonged inflammation where inflammatory cells are present beyond the time when actually needed and can cause damage to other cells. The inflammatory switch gets turned on permanently. So, can you think of different circumstances in which the body reacts to an injury or illness? So, I'm kind of thinking along the lines of something like gastroenteritis, which is a reaction to toxin, and swelling is the reaction to the skin injury. So, when we have something like gastroenteritis, we have that the mucosal membrane of the stomach and the organs around it just becoming quite inflamed. And itis is just inflammation. And that is as a result of ongoing toxins that have been able to be permeated into the body. So, causes of inflammation. Acute inflammation, we have injuries, infection, tissue damage, illnesses usually accompanied by swelling, redness, heat, and loss of function. So, these are the ones that we see perhaps when we get a cut, or we have broken bones, or we have um, a flu, something like that. We have inflammation of the nasal passages. We have inflammation of perhaps the vocal cords. We have inflammation of the lungs. These are all different inflammatory processes that are caused by that are considered acute. But when we're looking at the chronic inflammation, these are ones that are considered long term. So persistent infection or inflammation. I've got two, it's a bit of a typo there, but causes a persistent infection. So this is just ongoing, perhaps mild, kind of under the radar kind of infections that we don't even realize are going on, and just have realized that potentially some of the symptoms are just normalized as a result. Food sensitivities, that's another one. So when we have reactions to food that we kind of almost put up with and become used to as normal within our bodies as well too. So you could have a food sensitivity to gluten or dairy or wheat or eggs or soy or nuts, or and if they're not a true allergy and just a sensitivity, we often still just continue taking these foods in with just covering up the symptoms. So taking a lactate, or just taking an antacid, or we're not really looking at that root cause of the fact that we are actually sensitive to these foods, and eliminating them out of our diet. We're just putting up with the symptoms, which is continually allowing the body to be in that persistent mild or chronic inflammatory response going forward. So toxins that we come in contact with on a regular basis could be cigarette smoke, it could be chemicals, it could be, for cleaning, it could be different chemicals or different things that we're putting on our body as well too. Um, it could be EMF, it could be negative thought patterns. These are all different things that can cause a lot of toxins within the body and cause a disruption, and allowing for that chronic inflammation to be ongoing. Poor diet, again, is one of those big, big ones. So looking towards something like a pro-inflammatory diet, and we'll talk about that a little later on. Not getting enough sleep. And as a result, perhaps, as a result of chronic inflammation, but also, when we're younger and we're having lots of fun and we're just, not getting enough sleep and working too much, and whatever reason we're not getting enough quality sleep, or not, scrolling through Instagram or getting into TikTok, or, just doing things with that blue light in front of us and not being able to really relax and get our bodies into that mode of sleep. This is going to be very pro-inflammatory on the body at all times. So becomes a very chronic condition. And as a result of the increased inflammation, we end up not being able to sleep as well either. So our environment, again, is one of those things that can be quite inflammatory as well too. So where we work, the lights that we're under, the EMFs, again, stress is one of those big ones as well too. So in the environment that we work in, potentially the stress is very, very high, which is going to cause inflammation and chronic inflammation, potentially um, a negative relationship, perhaps, that you might be under. And exercise, even though that might be a good um, stress on the body, or a good inflammatory response on the body, exercise can actually be considered chronic inflammation if a person is continually without rest, exercising on a regular basis. So the process of inflammation, the pathway basically of what we're looking at, referred to as, this pathway. First, we have inflammatory inducers that set off an alarm system and signals the tissue stress, injury, or malfunction. Inflammatory inducers can be exogenous, so from with outside the body, or um, so anything that's inflammatory from outside of the body, that would be, maybe pathogens or toxins, something like that, or endogenous signals from inside the body, such as that ATP, which is that energy release that we get from exercise, or even negative thought patterns from inside the body, or once pathogens and or parasites or um, disease gets hold, it continues to have that internal, um, what we call pleomorphism, so that upward development of bacteria and different things within the body as well too, which can cause that endogenous signals within the body. Sensor cells use specific receptors to detect these inducers. So the sensor cells that respond by inducing inflammatory mediators, based on the type of inducers, a unique mediator signal comprised of different combinations of the amounts of mediators is produced. So something signals to the body, and the body starts going into action to try to protect it. So the inflammatory mediators will act on target tissues, enabling an elimination of the inducers and an adaptation of the injurious site. So these inducers or the mediators are the white blood cells for the most part, and other fighters within our body that can actually help to reduce and eliminate the potential threat that's going on in the body that's causing the inflammatory process to be um, uh, uh, activated. So, upon successful completion, the tissue that is affected returns to homeostasis. So, once the mediators help to really decrease the sensors, the different things that are causing the response from the inducers, then the body can return to regular balance from there. So the inflammatory response is a high cost and high benefit as well too. So, but you have to go through these steps to get to the new homeostasis. And this is where the process of looking at lifestyle choices and foods and different things comes into play. Although it can be quite life-saving, the inflammatory response actually can impair tissue functions as well too. Since it's a high cost and high benefit, the inflammatory response is partially vulnerable to the changes such as microbial exposure, diet, stress, toxins, and physical activity. And this may explain the dramatic increase in the prevalence of inflammatory diseases seen over the last several decades. So signs of chronic inflammation, there's quite a few, but the increase in visceral fat. So visceral fat, if you've been listening to my videos, visceral fat is that fat that actually continues to be one of the stubborn types of fat that we are just not able to reduce very significantly anyways. I'm going to tell you a little bit later about one of the things that can help to reduce visceral fat. But for now, understanding that visceral fat is that deep-seated fat that actually cushions our internal organs. It's not the fat that you can pinch on your body. And visceral fat, again, is one of those things that can be very, very hard to reduce because it is such deep-seated, and it's the body's response to actually trying to protect the body, especially if we have poor diet, or we go through yo-yo dieting, or we go through just and again, it's just the body's response to being able to keep you safe with that extra cushion. Unfortunately, it is also one of those high risk factors for cardiovascular disease, one of those high risk factors for those metabolic syndrome type issues, so cardiovascular disease, some cancers, and diabetes. So understanding that visceral fat, even though it's the body is trying to protect you, it's actually um, working against you. Elevated blood sugar levels is another one of those possible signs of chronic inflammation as well too. So understanding that indication towards diabetic type picture. Gut problems. So, ongoing issues within the gut that you just can't seem to resolve. And the doctor has potentially told you this is the way you're going to have to live for the rest of your life. And there's nothing that we can do about it. So, gas, bloating, potentially that leaky gut or SIBO kind of picture. And as a result, we end up getting increased fatigue because there's so much inflammation in the body that it is halting the blood from being able to get to the places that it needs to get to. And from my perspective as a doing live blood, I see this all the time where the blood is just stuck, and um, the red blood cells, the only job that they have basically is to bring oxygen and nutrients to a body part and waste products away. And if we don't have the movement, and the blood is very tight and stuck and sticky and not able to do the job that it needs to do because of the increased inflammation, we become quite fatigued as a result. And some other really just, prevalent indicators can be skin problems. So when we have the gut problems, when we have the visceral fat and the elevated blood sugars, we get the fatigue, but we also get skin problems. And skin problems erupt as a result of underlying issues that haven't been addressed for a long period of time. All of a sudden, your body's screaming and showing you on the outside, as opposed to just having the chronic inflammation in the inside, where we oftentimes don't even think about it too much. But when we start seeing it on our skin, this is the last of the body's attempts to try to tell you that something is going on. Gingivitis is inflammation of the gums, and something that can be that I see and take into consideration a lot with my clients, just because of the fact that gingivitis, mouth issues, this is the beginning of a lot of issues going forward. So potentially gingivitis, but also root canals and metals that might be in the mouth as well too. These are all leached into the system. This is the beginning. The mouth is the beginning of the entire gastrointestinal system. And what goes on in the mouth will leach into the rest of the body. So always looking in the mouth and understanding the implications of poor oral hygiene, as well as any potential underlying low grade kind of infections that might be going on. Root canals potentially have um, uh, an increased amount of bacteria simply because they lose the nerve endings in those areas, and you don't end up getting feeling, but there could be pockets of bacteria and different things that are going to be leaching into the system as a result. And then of course, when we have all of these other symptoms, again too, swelling is that one major symptom that is classic with all inflammation, not only just chronic but acute as well too. And then, of course, inflammation going to the brain, because the brain is fatty tissue as well too, and part of the whole system. It just becomes, yeah, it just becomes to the point where everything is fogged up in the body, and we really notice it within the brain because obviously we're thinking, and becomes quite hard for us to keep focus on things as well too. So, identifying chronic inflammation. So, different proteins and enzymes found in the blood can help myself identify inflammation as well too. So, potentially looking at possible biomarkers. So, we're going to get into a little bit of the sciencey end of things. Sometimes these biomarkers are very disease specific as well too. So, keeping in mind when we're looking at heart disease, Biomarkers or lab tests that you can have may indicate towards these different inflammatory markers. The CRP is one of those major ones that we want to look at. And it is actually a protein produced by the liver in response to inflammation as well, too. So looking at that and getting your practitioner or whoever you can to get this blood test done for you, and you can really see a lot through that. And then, potentially bringing it to somebody like myself who can read the test results and give you that opportunity to start looking at decreasing inflammation through a natural process. We're also looking at cytokines, serum, amyloid A, selectins, phospholipidase, and homocysteine levels as well too. When we're looking at cancer, we're looking at the cytokines again, leukocytes, so your immune cells, the CRP as well too, certain free radicals, looking for prostaglandins, and other related lipids and enzymes as well too, and the NF-κB nuclear factor, which is the kappa B, which is a regulatory for the innate immunity as well too. So keeping those in mind when you go see your physician, and understanding that these are typical markers that you want to be looking at. So there's some medicinal ways of reducing inflammation. I think we all kind of know these. Aspirin and these medicines, these medicinal ways they're in a category called anti-inflammatories for a reason. So you're looking at your aspirin, your ibuprofen, which is your Advil, Motrin, or Midol. Tylenol is not anti-inflammatory. Tylenol is an acetaminophen, so know the difference. There's anti-inflammatories and there's acetaminophen. So know the difference there when you're going towards looking for anti-inflammatories. But understand things like ibuprofen are very hard on the body, and it's not something that you should be taking on a regular basis. Naproxen is another anti-inflammatory. Celebrex, the generic name Celebrex there, is another well-known anti-inflammatory within Canada. These ones are a little bit not so much, except for the corticosteroids, which are, oftentimes injected into the body, and not always a pleasant experience for a lot of people. So just keeping that in mind. Not saying that there's anything bad with medicinal anti-inflammatories, or even anything medicinal for that matter, but it's just understanding that it should be going hand in hand with natural things, from my perspective anyways, as somebody that's come from the conventional medicine platform, working in the holistic end of things now. There should be a nice balance. So once we've tried everything natural and it doesn't work anymore, you've got the best diet possible, you've decreased everything and changed your lifestyle, going towards medicinal for that added little boost potentially is something that you do need. Or for people that have actually have major damage done at this point too. So chronic arthritis. So people that have the damage that is done in their bodies, and natural means should be added in there as well too, but understanding that the medicinal end of things are going to be extremely only just one-sided, and what you want to do on the help to help on the end of it is throw in these natural ways of decreasing inflammation as well too. So looking at food first, obviously, because this is what we were talking about. The food first formula is the lower glycemic vegetables and fruits, and nuts as well too. We're going to dive into this a little bit more. Mono and polyunsaturated fats, supplements like magnesium, vitamin C, vitamin D. These are all anti-inflammatory type supplements. Also looking at exercise and activity, stress management, and meditation. People think that the stuff is like, no, that's too simple, that can't work, but it does. It's a matter of being consistent with it. It's a matter of being not just understanding that it's a band-aid approach, which is what we get with the medicinal end of things. It's just a band-aid. What we're doing with natural things is actually getting to that root cause and allowing the body to come back into that homeostasis through the natural end of things, and using medicinal as that, again, that little boost that we need for um, getting over that hump, especially, like I said, if there is chronic damage already done. So what is an anti-inflammatory diet? So because we are a food first formula here at Nutritional Solutions, we are looking always at food first, but there is a place for supplements as well. But it has to be a hand in hand kind of path that we have to go down with regards to looking at all aspects from a holistic end of things. Food, lifestyle, supplements, they all go hand in hand, as well as mindset and body movement. And and potentially that medicinal end of things, or that conventional medicine type of a way of looking at things. So keeping that in mind, research studies have found that meat-based or Western eating patterns to be positively associated with biomarkers of inflammation, and a plant-based eating patterns to inversely associated with biomarkers of inflammation. Now, before you shut me off because you think I'm heading towards a plant-based diet, this is not what it's about. I'm just showing you research and understanding that this is what happens. But when you bring your body down to a level and back to a level of homeostasis, through a plant heavy or plant-based type diet, this is when you can start introducing the meat products or animal products back into your diet without the body going crazy into that inflammatory response. It potentially will for a certain amount, but because the body has been brought down into that homeostasis, it will be able to handle the increased inflammation and bring you back into homeostasis even faster, because you've really supported the body and the organs and decreased what's already there. The burden is gone. So when you're not adding one on top of the other, 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 when you go towards a plant heavy or plant-based type diet, you're decreasing your inflammatory markers and bringing them down to a normal level. So when you do have injury, or you do have, a steak, or you do have some dairy, or you do have these different inflammatory type foods, your body can handle it a lot better. It's when we have years and decades of this type of way of eating, and it's build up and build up and build up and build up, so your body just can't handle it anymore, and it trying to just start screaming at you, with the result being disease processes going forward. I hope that kind of makes sense a little bit. So don't get freaked out. Plant-based diet as shown by everybody to be, have that such incredible benefits, and it's just, for some people, we're natural meat eaters, and that's perfectly fine. But understanding, if you want to really heal the body, if you want to really give the body that opportunity to get into that homeostasis, that nice balance, then going towards a plant heavy type diet is going to be your best effort. So, like I said, research from the Large Scale Women's Health Initiative and MESA studies suggest that certain dietary patterns have anti-inflammatory type effects. So the diet is appropriate in calories, low processed carbohydrates, high in fiber, high in mono and polyunsaturated fats, higher in omega-3 and 6, and high in polyphenols. So if you've been following my little video snippets all along, you know that, a couple of these terms are going to be kind of a review for you at this point. So what are we looking at for whole foods? Carbohydrates. So this is a macronutrient. A macronutrient is carbs, proteins, and fats. So carbohydrates are essential to our diet. Not saying anything against a keto type diet or a low carb type diet, but understanding when we're talking about carbs or a low carb type diet, you want to be looking towards whole carbohydrates. Um, and low glycemic type carbohydrates as well too. So not the processed carbohydrates. Whole carbohydrates such as vegetables, fruits, beans, and whole grains are an excellent source of fiber. So fiber is extremely, extremely important for being able to scrub the intestinal wall and get rid of toxins within the body. Because when we have the intestinal wall is filled with fecal matter, that and causes in that inflammatory response, it causes bad bacteria in the body, and the body's going, well, there's lots of bad bacteria here. I don't want this. I need to get rid of this. And it starts protecting the body by increasing inflammation in that area. And if it doesn't help, and then we end up with that SIBO picture where we have intestinal permeability is compromised, and because the bad bacteria has been able to dig its way through the intestinal wall, this is where we get bacteria and different things within the body. And when there's more bacteria and pathogens and undigested food products in the blood, in the body, which I see in live blood, this is where we have that issue of increased inflammation, because the body's going, you're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be in the gut being released. Bad bacteria has got a specific spot in the gut that it's supposed to stay in. But when it gets released into the body's again trying to protect itself and causing that inflammatory response. So it's kind of like, yeah, it sounds like it's kind of going against us, but at the same time, when we start to offer the body different healing methods, especially through food, then we can actually reverse that and allow some healing to respond and happen. So our diets, our standard American diets, are one of those potentially things that have been causing these issues for decades. And they say that anybody that has been on the standard American diet, that SAD diet, about 95% of you are actually have some version of SIBO, and as a result, that inflammatory response. So just going back to whole carbs, they actually help to stabilize the blood sugars and have, like I said, have that excellent source of fiber, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and are absorbed more slowly. So that actually allows for that stabilization of blood sugar. So when we have a stable blood sugar levels, again, we don't have the up, we don't have the down, we don't have the up, we don't have the down, we don't have that blood sugar through processed and refined carbohydrates dumping straight into our bloodstream, which causes that spike. And then as a result, our blood sugars drop again. We have that nice steady flow, because when we have the up and the down and the up and the down, and this is where we really wreaks havoc on our pancreas as well as our liver, and we really have that inflammatory process happening. And then when those organs just become too overworked or overburdened and become damaged, this is when we end up getting those diagnoses as a result. So we're going to eat less of the processed carbs. So this is just an example of processed carbs, and which are totally lacking in fiber. They actually spike our blood sugar levels, just like I was talking about. And examples are cookies and chips and pretzels. And these types of foods can be drivers of inflammation simply through what I was just talking about. Whole carbohydrates are also more nutrient dense as well, and energy dense as well too, contributing to a well-balanced diet. So just think about the things that you've eaten in the last couple of days, the processed carbs as opposed to the whole carbs. You don't have to comment, but just understanding where you could have maybe made some better choices. So high fiber foods clear the toxins and feed the gut microbiome. So not only do, like I said, they scrape the wall of the um, gut, the gut wall, but they also are packed with what's called prebiotics. So everybody knows about probiotics, but the prebiotics, which we get from foods, actually help to feed the good microbiome, the good gut flora, and help them to be stronger and, kill off the bad bacteria at that point. High fiber foods actually might help you to lower cholesterol as well, stabilizing the blood sugar because of the fiber that's in them that slows things down quite a bit. And it contributes to feeling full a lot longer as well too. So that's an amazing benefit right there, and promotes healthy bowel function. So this is important on so many levels. I'm not going to get into the poop questions or talking about too much, because I could be here all day then. Nutritionists just love to talk about poop. Fiber can be found in a wide variety of plant foods, including the fruits and vegetables, excuse me, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. So if you've been following along with my videos, I'm talking a lot more about the types of fiber and how to get around different things. So when we talk about the food first formula, I'm talking about a generalization, which is not how I work with my clients one-on-one, because one-on-one I work with them with their own specific sensitivities and allergies and likes and dislikes and all these different things as well too. So some people can't absorb red pepper, a lot of people can't, or green pepper. A lot of people can't digest beans, and these are things that when I work with a client, we really work together to figure out how to maneuver around it, as well as maybe even alleviate these issues. So when we're looking at fats, we're looking at mono and polyunsaturated fats, which should be chosen over saturated and trans fats all the time. Choosing unsaturated fats over saturated fats and trans fatty fats may actually lower your LDL, um, and your reduce the risk of heart disease. So mono and polyunsaturated fats include your olives, avocados, tree nuts, seeds, non-tropical oils, fatty fishes, fish, walnuts, ground flax seeds, and chia seeds. So these are the ones you want to go towards, but be very careful when you're looking at your fatty fish. You're also taking in high amounts of mercury from the ocean as well too. So limit that as much as possible. And, getting away from your saturated fats as much as possible. So, fatty cuts of meat and fatty ground meats are extremely high in saturated fats. Your processed meats, your bacons, your salamis, your bologna, your hot dogs, these are all processed meats. And the WHO is actually considered them, I don't remember the level, but they are on that carcinogen level of poor foods to be taking in. So, for my low carb and no carb type eaters, please, please, please be very careful with that intake, because it can be quite harmful overall when you're trying to look skinny and going towards that losing fat. I've got different options for you with regards to that, and and while taking in a whole micronutrient balanced diet. Commercially industrialized refined oils, so your palm oil, your palm kernel oils, processed fats, foods, sorry, with partially hydrogenated oils. So butter is sitting here. I'm a fan of butter, as opposed to something like margarine. Butter is a saturated fat, yes. Coconut oil is a saturated fat, yes. But I would much prefer to see butter and coconut oil in the saturated your diet, as opposed to margarine. Margarine is a product, a man-made product that has been chemically altered, and your body doesn't recognize what it is. Butter, at least, is a natural product. Use it sparingly, mind you, but use it as opposed to margarine, please. So Western diets tend to be deficient in omega-3 and excessive in omega-6. So your omega-3s, we're going back to, and this we're still looking at your mono and polyunsaturated fats. Your salmon, again, being very careful with salmon and mackerel, your ocean fishes. Our oceans are terribly, terribly polluted, and you want to decrease that load as much as possible. Chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds. Flax seeds, you want to have them ground. Otherwise, the seeds themselves will just kind of be used as a scrubber in the intestine, and you want to be able to get the oils. If you want to use them as a scrubber, then fine. They're a great scrubber for the intestines. but you want to have them ground to be able to get the omega-3s out of them. And although the recommended consumption ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 is 1 to 4, the current ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 is usually around 1 to 20. So our omega-6 intake just is through the roof, and we want to bring it down to 1 to 4. The better ratio may reduce inflammation and reduce the risk of chronic diseases as a result. So you're going to try to include more sources of omega-3 into your meals and snacks. And sources of omega-3, like I said, are these mackerel, salmon, chia seeds, flax seeds, and hemp seeds. Our omega sixes are corn oil, our soybean oil, safflower oil, canola oil. Again, you want to be very, very um, small amounts of that anyways to bring down that ratio of 1 to 4. So be very, very um, conscious of that, because right now, like I said, the ratio is about 1 to 20. We are taking in too much canola oil. We're taking in too much corn oil. We're taking in too much of this omega-6. Even though it's important, we still want to have smaller amounts. So how you do that is by bringing up your omega-3s as much as possible, decreasing your omega-6s as much as possible, and bring it down to that ratio of 1 to 4. So going into our antioxidant-rich foods, these are components of whole plant foods that may offer protection against inflammation and the development of a number of chronic diseases. It's kind of the same thing I'm saying over and over again, so just bear with me. These antioxidants can be found in a wide variety of plant foods. Of different types of antioxidants can be found in different foods. So carotenoids are one category of antioxidant-rich foods. There's over 8,000 um, um, different kinds of antioxidant-rich foods, and I've just given you a little bit of um, an overview of all these different kinds, but these are kind of the essential ones as well too, and some of the really important um, nutrient dense foods that you should be taking in for those antioxidants. Antioxidants are really going to be important to help with those free radicals, and free radicals come about from stress in the body. And free radicals are those things that age us and really can exasperate and up level or our risk factors for cancers um, and heart disease and that those metabolic syndrome type pictures that we are talking about today. So carotenoids can be found in red peppers, carrots, kale, and watermelon. Notice the bright colors. That's eating the rainbow. That's the where we talk about understanding that these brightly colored mother nature beautiful pockets of nutrients are so very important for the bodies. Um, I was just talking the other day about polyphenols. So there's over 8,000 different polyphenols that are included in the antioxidant-rich foods as well too. And we're getting those from our dark chocolate, our green teas, our red wines. Being very cautious about the amount that you take in, but chocolates, 70%, very, very good for you. Getting away from the milk chocolate and getting away from the high sugars. These can be in small doses quite helpful with regards to polyphenols, which is those really incredible components of antioxidants. The indoles are very, very good for women's health and really help to bring about some balance of our hormones. So we're looking at our cruciferous vegetables here. Cauliflower, broccoli, bok choy, and Brussels sprouts. Incredible, incredible nutrient-dense foods. Lignans, a little bit of a controversy with regards to them, even though they are antioxidant-rich foods. Some people can be quite sensitive to them. So taking in consideration that if you are looking at your flaxseed, your sesame seed, your peanuts, which are not nuts at all, and pumpkin seeds, be very careful because you could have a sensitivity to lignans, and this is where you come and see myself or somebody that can do the food and sensitivity for you and really be able to distinguish whether you do have a sensitivity to these and how to actually reduce them, because they are in, even though we don't understand where a lot of these things are, but they can be added quite a lot to foods that we just have no idea. And then we're looking at the curcuminoids, and this is found in our turmeric as well too, both in the whole form and the spice form. And this is another one of those really highly antioxidant, anti-inflammatory type agents. Curcumin and turmeric, one of those really, really big ones that is on the top of the list for anti-inflammatories. So special mentions, so supplements. So the omega-3 fatty acids, they actually inhibit enzymes and promote inflammation as well too. So when supplementing, looking towards, flaxseed oils, potentially fish oils, if you are in that, if you prefer fish oils. Fish oils are amazing, amazing for heart health. Omega-3s really, really helpful for um, helping to balance female hormones, adding in an omega-6 fatty acid like evening primrose oil, and using a lunar cycle. These are very, very helpful for balancing female hormones. And one of the things that I recommend for a lot of my clients, and I've actually done myself, very, very effective. But really helping you to get that nice balance between the omega-3 and the omega-6. Curcumin, like I just mentioned, a very, very powerful antioxidant, can definitely can get over off the counter at a health food store. And talk to your nutritionist and talk to somebody that can actually tell you which products would be best for you. Vitamin D actually interferes with the inflammation cascade. So not only helping you with immune system regulation, helping to better absorb calcium into the bones and process all these different things. But vitamin D actually is one of those really potent antioxidants as well too. So another one that is not mentioned is vitamin C, high antioxidant values, something that I believe most people should be supplementing with. And if not, and that's okay. There's some people that don't need it, and that's okay too. But vitamin C is another one of those big, big ones. And resveratrol actually helps to regulate immune response as well too. And resveratrol is what we find in red grapes. It's actually the skin of red grapes, and resveratrol is one of those ones that I'm a holistic cancer practitioner as well. So one of those ones that can be very, very helpful in halting cancer process. A lot of people use it in conjunction with other holistic and conventional medicine techniques, but can be very, very helpful to regulate the immune response, but also decrease cancer markers as well too. So when you're looking at supplements, always understanding that it's important to check with your healthcare professional, your nutritionist or dietitian before subscribing to any supplemental regime. And as a healthcare professional myself, a nutritionist, a functional medicine nutritionist as well too, or a functional nutritionist, really, really just connecting with somebody that can do a full health history on you, your likes and dislikes, understanding you as an individual, because you are definitely going to be different from every other person. Not just using Dr. Google and saying, well, 75% of people have really great results on this. So you're trying it and then having a reaction and then not understanding how important it is to be very specific and very conscientious about supplements and eating protocols and lifestyle adjustments, because everybody has a different biochemical makeup and everybody has a different issues going on in their bodies, and everybody has different thought processes. Everybody has different lifestyle choices that they've made and continue to make. And these are all individual factors that can play and make a difference within products and everything, even food choices. Special mention, there is a supplement called Zenith from Awaken, and it actually helps to reduce inflammation in the body, as well as is 90% more effective than diet and exercise alone. So my clients that are working really, really hard with their diet, have changed things, have a regular exercise routine, that are on this product, are really seeing some amazing results for not only decreasing visceral fat. So 100% of their visceral fat and subcutaneous fat is being decreased while increasing lean muscle mass. They're also decreasing their inflammatory response within the body. And that kind of goes hand in hand. You know, you want to decrease the inflammation so the body can actually respond a little bit better to the diet that's going on, and it kind of gives it a little bit of a boost. It actually helps to decrease the leptin resistance. So I haven't talked about leptin here, but leptin is a hormone that is usually would signal to the brain when you're feeling full. So it's a normal response of the body when the body says, okay, well, I've had enough to eat, I'm good to go, you don't need to eat anymore. If we continue to ignore that signal, the body becomes leptin resistant, and it continues to produce more and more leptin all the time, and then the body just becomes numb to those signals. It actually helps to reduce that and increase leptin sensitivity. So you actually know when you're full, you know when your body's had enough, you're getting the signals that you need to get. And it allows for you to stop eating and feel okay with that, and not have that ongoing, I have to eat, I have to eat, I have to eat, or not listening to the body when it's full. So you have decreased cravings as well too. You have increased feelings of fullness. And you know, and a lot of people, because we have the nice balance, you know, that homeostasis coming into balance, we have people that are actually reducing menopausal symptoms. So we're balancing our hormones a lot more, and actually being able to sleep a lot better, reducing that apple shape, that visceral fat around the center. So that's the increased waist circumference that really increases the risk for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and those metabolic disorders we were talking about earlier. So when you reduce that apple shape, that visceral fat, you're actually reducing or increasing your risks for not having that disease going forward. So this is the one product that I do um, recommend. This is the one product that I do promote. All other products, they're really dependent upon the person, but this is an amazing product that can be life-changing and has been life-changing for so many people. Product I myself take, and you know, and a safe product that's all natural, has only two ingredients in it, and you know, so safe that I have my 80-year-old mother on it, who has lost about 10 pounds in 6 weeks. uh, you know, they do claim in the trials of this product that people were losing upwards of 20 pounds in 8 weeks. So you know, this is a game changer for so many people, and adding that to an anti-inflammatory way of eating is what I promote. When people buy this product for me, I, you know, provide that opportunity to do one-on-one counseling. I provide them with anti-inflammatory type diets. You'll notice in this picture here, this graph, that it is mostly, actually, I'm just looking at it myself. It is all plant-based, but you understanding that, you know, during a certain period of time, if you're trying to heal your body, this is the way you're going to want to go. And when we're putting it in context of a lifestyle change, well, that's where, you know, during this portion of your life where you are hurting and you're getting diagnoses and you're not happy and you're all these symptoms are coming up all the time, all the time, all the time, you want to get into what I call a healing journey. And during that healing journey, it could last, you know, 6 months, it could last 3 years, depending upon the severity of the symptoms that are going on. This is what would be recommended. And then once you get to a nice homeostasis, which we talked about earlier, this is where you would start incorporating things back into your life, and in small doses or not, depending upon how well you want to and how long you want to stay in that homeostasis. But bringing that body down to that balance, that beautiful homeostasis is important, and this is part of that journey. So this is actually based on a Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, and noticing that it is very much a plant heavy meal way of looking at things. The consensus of research of 75%, which is the minimum proportion of plants to consume to achieve health benefits. So there is no plant animal product on this way of eating, but you want to at least have 75% of your diet to be plant-based if you want results. This is not my numbers. This is the consensus. This is the across the board for pretty much any practitioner that knows anything about eating and health and diets. You can go towards 100% whole plant-based diet, but again, this is something that should be monitored. If you've never done something like that, you want to make sure that you're getting all the nutrients that you can from your foods as much as possible. And this is where you bring in the supplements on the side when you can't, say, eat red peppers, or you can't or can't even stomach tempeh or soy. You can't digest beans at this point. Eventually you will. Nuts and seeds, perhaps you have some digestive issues. Diverticulitis, for one, is one of those things that, you can't have your nuts and seeds. Some people can't digest lettuce. Everybody's got a little bit different way of looking at things. You'll notice in this way of eating, though, that there is no dairy. We don't need dairy. Dairy is a hard one to give up, but it is something that is important because dairy is quite inflammatory. But again, it depends upon the person. It depends upon the stage in which their health is at. If you have gone, I had somebody say the other day to me that, if I go off for a while of dairy, then I notice I become more sensitive to it. Well, yes, because we become desensitized over decades of having this in our body that we just don't realize, and we have that underlying um, slow burn of inflammation that's been going on for years and years and years. And then when you clean up your body and you take these things out of your body is going to become more sensitive to things like dairy, things like rich, heavy foods um, that are hard to digest, like meats and different things like that. For people that are thinking they want to go towards a keto type diet, something like this can be done as well too, but it makes it a little bit harder because to get in the amount of fats and to get into the amount of proteins that you need, it can be a little bit difficult. And just understanding that, again, this is where a professional like myself would be somebody that you want to access as well too. Um, yeah. So, understanding that 25% of, let me see here. When we're looking at this, we're looking at um, a small portion of your healthy fats. It's because fats are high in calories as well too, but you only need a small amount of them. You're going to definitely have your waters and other beverages that are going to be of the anti-inflammatory type basis. So your green teas, your black teas, coffees, I would, go towards dairy-free, looking towards your almond milks if you need some sort of cream or something in them. Whole grains and seeds, again, you're going to be towards that whole grains as much as possible. So, making sure you have your brown rice, your brown wheat, whole grains. Not necessarily saying that you always have to have, never have bread. Again, you can have bread, but if you are gluten-free, then you might want to look at some different options. Your proteins are going to be a small portion of your dietary intake as well too, because you are getting protein from so much of other things as well too. Your edamame, your quinoa, your beans and legumes, soy milk, Soy milk is not a bad thing, but we're not talking about that here. For many women, soy is extremely important because of the xenoestrogens that we get in from other things. We want to push that out with proper estrogen. But anyways, not talking about that here. Your fermented pickles and vegetables, and pickled vegetables, these are going to be helpful for your probiotic as well as your prebiotic as well too. Your prebiotics are going to come in your fruits and vegetables, and they are going to be, and your sugars and your energy and your fats are going to come from your, are going to be part of that energy as well too. And just looking at that whole macronutrient presence within your eating patterns is key for the decreasing the risk and decreasing disease going forward. So this is just a little bit of a quiz to see if you're listening, understanding, naming 3 diseases that are impacted by inflammation. So we're looking at which ones? Diabetes, cancer, neurological disease, metabolic syndrome, autoimmune disorders, cardiovascular disease. Those are the top ones. Looking at acute, 2 different types of inflammation. I just said it. Acute, so when we have injuries, infection, tissue damage, illness, they all are accompanied by swelling, redness, heat, and loss of function. And then we look at chronic inflammation, which is that persistent, potentially even low grade infection that we don't see because it is so under the radar. Food insensitivities, food allergies, in fact, toxins, poor diet, environment, stress, exercise. And naming 2 foods and the compounds that they contain that help inflammation. 2 foods, basically fats, carbohydrates, our antioxidants, any of those carotenoids, polyphenols, indoles, lignans, curcuminoids. These are all different foods. So anything in the plant-based world, basically the way Mother Nature intended it. So just bringing it all together, because I'm a little over time and I don't want to keep you here all day. We're looking at resources of when somebody works with me. I have meal plans, which include recipes and videos and handouts and all kinds of information that can be extremely, extremely helpful for leaning towards that anti-inflammatory type of eating. You can add in the product Zenith. This is going to be a game changer. And then, of course, you can add in lifestyle and nutrition coaching as well. So these are all options. When somebody buys the product Zenith from me, they actually get all of this included for free. But if you want to just go towards an anti-inflammatory type diet, go back to the main page and click on a meal plan, and you'll get 3 days free with that. If you want to connect with me and chat, go back to the main page again, and we can set up a time to talk about this a little bit further, to understand what Zenith is, understand what the meal plans, understand how I can provide coaching and lifestyle options for you for nutrition and lifestyle, and work with you one-on-one to help really tailor a very personalized program for you. These are different options that I can provide for you. So this is where you can connect with me. I have a website, whnutritionalsolutions.com. You can also email me, wendy@wendyhumphreys.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, usually through Nutritional Solutions by Wendy or Nutritional Solutions and Live Blood Analysis, because that's another option if you are in the area, we can definitely look at. I'm just newly on TikTok. I've actually dove right in. So I have a lot of videos and information type. I don't dance. I'm not one of these people that's, you're doing all these dances. That's why it's taking me so long to get on the TikTok, but that's my handle at the moment. And then if you really want to learn more about Zenith, and look at the website, without connecting with me first, you can go to https semicolon / awakennation.com/Wendy B. And this is where you can find more information about the product, without connecting with me first. But I highly recommend, if you have some questions, to reach out and to, um, just talk. It's just, we can talk for 30 minutes and answer a few questions and see if maybe this product might be good for you, see if the meal plans might be good for you, and, maybe even some coaching from there. So have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me. I am truly blessed by your presence, and I hope to talk to you soon. Take care.